Welcome back to Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Hey everybody, we are talking about one of the funkier concepts in spirituality, in personal power development, and intuitive development as well, which is overcoming deceptive influence. And we'll get into the topic and the variety of ways in which it's a part of your life, whether or not you realize it, as we go on today. But it is part of the concept of discovering your authentic self, which the only way to be in true alignment with your highest self is to be your authentic self. And your authentic self is obscured beneath deceptive influence. That is the easiest way to put it. It does not mean you're being lied to or fooled on some sinister level. It's pretty complicated, and we're going to go into the ways to start detaching from it so that you can get your divinely inspired truth. And that's really what overcoming deceptive influence is about, is being able to tap into your divine guidance and to make sure it's not egocentric. We've talked a lot about ego death before and how ego is a little bit necessary because you need to be able to be self-protective in a world that is, again, under the influence of deceptive influence. And it's not the same thing as good and evil, and we're not going to touch on those concepts today. We're going to stick with the idea that everything that you believe about yourself, you were taught. And some of these things are positive, and some of them are about controlling you. And anything that's about controlling you is taking your power. And so that is why you want to figure out where it's coming from. You want to find out where you want to play the games that you are being told to play, which is a little bit of deceptive influence, and where you need to step outside of them in order to have access to your purpose, your path, and everything that you can do. You're a very powerful person. How you view your life is going to be how you feel about it. How you feel about life is how you approach the future. We have a lot of power in how thoughts create our reality, both to ourselves and to others. It can aid you in letting go of lesser emotions that can really define your experience if you are completely under the sway of them. Overcoming deceptive influence and recognizing where it is in your life is the thing that will make you the most powerful, the most connected, and yes, the most spiritual version of you if you are interested in the development of spirituality. Before I keep going with that, let's cover our housekeeping really quickly because I have a tendency to forget. I'm always forgetting to put this up on Facebook because I have not been doing any social media, Facebook and Instagram. It goes into our topic today, but there are ways to reach me. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session to discuss your spiritual development. That's the only way to book me, and I never approach you. Anybody who has any social media presence in the concept of deceptive influence has somebody imitating them and pretending to be them. They will DM you and say, I have a feeling, but I do charge for readings. And am I mocking that? Yeah, a little bit. Like if somebody's putting on my face and pretending to be me, I get to mock it a little bit. But there are scammers, and you need to be aware of that. So at therisingmoon.com is literally the only way to get a hold of me. Then there is my YouTube reading, my YouTube channel, which is now called Tarot at the Rising Moon, which is where the video versions of this particular podcast go up. Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica is my Patreon, where I do weekly readings, I do monthly readings. We talk about different ways to develop manifestation and your ability to manifest your own infinite abundance on that particular Patreon. So that's the other way to find me, is I have a Patreon. Everything's linked in the description box or in the episode notes below. Let's get going with deceptive influence because it's a fascinating topic. In the liminal space episode that I did, I covered a lot about tarot and how when you put down those cards, it is a doorway into a world unseen, and you need to remember that when you're opening a door, the thing that you want to talk to is not the only other thing on that side of that door. And you have to be very focused and grounded, and you have to have achieved certain aspects of ego death so you don't just see what you want to see. And that's the simplest form of deceptive influence. But it's not the only one that exists. So we're not talking specifically about tarot, but once you have detached from deceptive influence, your ability to use tarot, to use your intuitive abilities, to use things like visualization and scripting to manifest what you want will be increased, because deceptive influence steals your power. Deceptive influence. It can be as overt as the scammers I was talking about. That is the most overt form of deceptive influence that we have in our lives. We're all aware of it. Hardly anybody ever answers their phone because an unknown number is going to be a spammer or a scammer. It doesn't matter what part of the globe you're watching this from, you're aware of scammers in your life. So that's deceptive influence at the most obvious, like only those who are struggling with cognitive decline or an incredibly sheltered life are unaware of scammers and needing to guard yourself against it. So we're very aware of deceptive influence playing a role in how you approach day-to-day life. What we're less aware of is that deceptive influence has been a part of your life since the day that you were born. Everything that you believe about what you are supposed to be doing in this world was taught to you, and not all of it's bad. Some deceptive influence has to do with achieving the agendas and the goals of those who only care about power. And that's pretty bad, and we get a lot of those influences in our lives. But some of them are about, hey, listen, certain behaviors not conducive to society. We can't have people running around just doing exactly what they want, behaving as their completely natural selves without it being kind of chaotic. So some of the influence that we receive is about foundational influence, about what behaviors will destroy society and what will build it up and sustain it. And so that's a form of influence, but it is a productive form of influential input. Be kind to each other, share, other people's feelings matter. Hey, don't kill each other. Maybe don't have sex with literally everybody, because unfortunately that can cause some problems as well. But deceptive influence actually plays a part in what I just mentioned, which is that we are taught from the day that we are born in almost every society that we have a role to fulfill within that society. Some of that is foundational influence. Some of it is deceptive influence because it seeks to control you. It seeks to control your choices. There are cards within a couple of oracle decks that I have that talk about your deepest desires constraining you. It is what is implanted into you to desire that is the problem. That is the deceptive influence. If you grew up reading fairy tales and seeing romantic movies, a part of you will have been influenced to desire a romantic partner at such a level that you will blind yourself to the actual quality of the relationships, because it's a very deeply seated part of you to believe that that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to grow up, get married, have a house, do this job, do this other thing. The fact of the matter is that there are people who are always going to fit easily into that mold, and there will be people who do not. I am atypical and I'm neurodivergent, and that didn't even exist as a possibility in explaining me when I was younger, but I have lots of trauma. I've gone into my backstory. It's pretty bad, but then, a lot of people have that kind of backstory. There's a lot of trauma involved in our lives, and part of our deceptive influence are the masks that we are encouraged to put on as we move through this world. So you're taught to desire this thing, this, coupling of souls, this, having this particular life as being a successful one. Deceptive influence first comes to us in what is success, and it is being defined by an overreaching power structure that wishes to control you, sometimes for the betterment of society, but often just to aid the end goals. Your approach to work, the fact that so many people view the need to rest as being lazy rather than, hey, your body needs that, like they have to earn it. That's a form of deceptive influence. Our hustle culture is a form of deceptive influence, that you're only worth something if you're striving to make that money. And hey, money can buy some nice things, but when you're really in a healed state, you need less and less. So part of the reason that they want you to be controlled, and that's this, ubiquitous they. Who are they? The power structures within society, their religion, their government. Some of them are political. Some of them can be spiritual. Any structure that is saying everybody has to believe the same thing has a power structure behind it. The fact is, you're going to be drawn to the right answers for you in spirituality, and that you need to not have a black or white or all or nothing mentality around spirituality. Everybody is drawn to the narrative, their beliefs that are right for them. And that's simple, but questioning everything is one of the ways out of deceptive influence. Is this right for me? Is this not right for me? Everything that you're taught to want about what you're meant to achieve. If you grew up wanting to be a lawyer, society said we are rewarding that set of behaviors, even though anybody who's had to interact with the legal system, I got divorced, so, I've had to a lot, knows that it has nothing to do with fairness or rightness. It has to do with what's provable. It's like the ultimate how to, and people push that line a lot. One of the stranger things I encountered is the idea that like people lie within family court knowing that there's almost no way to prove it, and that the court is aware of that, and they're like, obvious lie, but we don't care. That it really is that it's just about solid logic, cold reason, the idea that justice is blind. But justice is not necessarily right and fair sometimes, which means that it's not really fulfilling the role of justice. And that's an aspect of deceptive influence, being encouraged to pretend something is one thing when it is very clearly, obviously another. We have to, and I'm not going to try and define many of those for you, but that's what you're looking at. Is I sit with myself and I ask myself, the things that I want, is it because I authentically want them? Because some desire to be here holds us here. When people really, really evolve beyond the need to be here, they basically check out before their physical body is even gone. My thing has always been, hey, listen, we have eternity to be incorporeal. While we're here, let's be invested. And of course, I believe that, people come here and that they want to fulfill a role that has to do with a collective, which is often the form of society in the earthly form. And that can be the good foundational influence as well. But then corrupt power influences say you need to control the choices. One of the easiest things to point to is, and this is like, please remember, if you have a shaming, blaming, no way, absolutely not, that you are encountering something called defensiveness around your structures. If you are defensive around the idea that something that you were taught might be wrong and you can't even consider the other point of view as being like, well, what influenced that? That is a form of deceptive influence. The idea that things are incredibly black and white and you can define everything by one thing. The reality is more complicated. The reality is more sophisticated. So if just put aside the need to be right for a moment, because that's another deceptive influence. Nothing happens when you're wrong except that you can learn more. Nothing happens when you're wrong except that you have the ability to expand your knowledge base. There's no reason to fear being wrong. Learning more will make you happier. Learning more about yourself, learning more about this world will make you more powerful, because you will not need to cling to these false structures that a deceptive influence put into place. So one of the things that I was just going to start talking about is whether or not you believe that people should be in monogamous relationships. That is absolutely brought to you by a religious power structure, by power structures in general. And guess what? I'm not going to crap all over it as a concept, because it came from a good place. Before antibiotics, before westernized and kind of industrialized medicine was available to us, sexually transmitted infections were devastating within society. And people, it's a desire-based thing, it's a biological-based thing that people desire sex. And so they put some constraints around it to try and help protect people more. But then it became shaming and blaming. And in abuse recovery, the first thing that you learn is that abusers control their victims with guilt and shame. Power structures control their victims with guilt and shame. When I use power structure, when it turns towards corruption, that's an abuse of power. We are all suffering from an abuse of power right now, no matter what you believe, no matter who you back, no matter what country that you're sitting in. We all suffer from an abuse of power. People who have stopped trying to serve their society and instead are serving their own end gains. Billionaires are going to be the most obvious answer of that. So one of the things that you're taught to believe is that you need stuff, you need to acquire new things, you need to have a certain kind of house, you need to have a certain kind of car, you need to have a certain kind of job to feel like you're successful. That is not true. You will feel successful when you are peaceful with your life, when you find meaning within it, when you find the ability to express your negative things, to experience your anger, your grief, and have it be fleeting, and then turn back towards what's good. What's positive? What am I grateful for? What things are amazing within this world? We live in such an amazing world that I don't know where you are in the world right now, but you can see me as clear as day and hear me as well. That is beautiful technology, bringing a world closer together, but also always dividing it, because we go towards the voices and the lessons that we have been taught to match with our own things. And the deceptive influence behind monogamy is saying that you're a bad person if that's not what you want. Now, attachment styles, different individual needs. Not everybody's meant to be in a monogamous relationship. One of the things that because I help people who are neurodivergent as well, with ADHD, some people discover that they have something called hypersexuality. Now, hypersexuality is the need for self-comforting through, sexual contact. And unfortunately, it has a desire aspect in it. There are ways around that. There are all kinds of forms of treatment. It's not a death sentence. If you wish to achieve monogamous relationships. And I'm not crapping on monogamous relationships. They're emotionally right for some people. The things that you are taught have the seed of truth within them, but only you can decide whether or not they're the right answers for you. So the first thing that you start asking is, everything that I believe, is there something that tried to teach me that because it was to their advantage? And in almost everything, you're going to come to the yes with the basics, being kind and generous, treating your neighbors as being of equal emotional importance to you. These are kind and generous things that hold a society together. We face threats more easily as a cohesive unit. We need some of this cohesion to be able, on a grander scale, to face this world with all of its challenges for survival. So it's not all evil, but you start questioning, why do I want the things that I want? Am I actually happy within my life? There is a plague of unhappiness in this world, and it is partially because people try to chase the things they're told to want, and then they're empty. Because it's an ever goalpost moving situation when it comes to materialism, and acquisition is the thing that will make you happy. And that is why, and I talk about it a lot, simplify your life. It is the thing that you can do that will take power away from the power structures trying to control you. It is the thing that will give you more clarity of mind, more clarity of peace. It is the thing that will give you you. The fact that everybody walks around with a phone right now all the time, and that they're even writing dramas and movies for something called second screenings so that people can follow along as they scroll, that is alarming as heck. That is far more destructive than the thing that was very prevalent in the generations before, which was people smoking. Smoking was a wave of societally approved addictive or compulsive behavior. First thing to do is release the negative reactions to labels. Like people who aren't necessarily naturally monogamous. They exist. They should probably hook up with other people who are monogamous, but because they are taught non-monogamous, but they are taught that you're supposed to have this thing. You're supposed to have this, I take vows before and never again anybody else, instead of being like, what am I naturally suited to? And so that's where so much of the damage comes in. It's not that these people are following a natural part of themselves. And I keep saying that in a distancing way because I actually, when I have relationships, I only personally prefer monogamous relationships. But that's about emotional safety more than everything. And I have clients who are polyamorous. I have clients who are in open relationships. I have clients who are swingers as well. And everybody gets to decide for themselves what's right for them in that area. But we start out being told you're supposed to want it in this form. And it's only often through destructive personal experiences that people learn to accept themselves. And they have to overcome the guilt and shame of having always been themselves, but trying to inhabit a structure that they were told they were supposed to. So the very first part of overcoming deceptive influence is asking yourself, what is it I want, and why do I really want it? Because the problem with the acquisition-based happiness is that it never lasts for long because it's based in wanting something. So you get the thing that you want, and then, oh, you don't want it as much anymore. So you have to look for something you still don't have to want. And it is a way of incentivizing people to keep going in a punishing structure. Really quickly, I'm going to divert to the concept of AI again, and honestly, it's going to be a little bit quick. AI, the rise of it, the fact that it's doing its thinking for people is a mixed blessing, because if AI was used appropriately, it would free up the world for innovation, for art, for expression, for evolution at a level that is staggering if we would just use it correctly. Instead, we don't say, hey, these machines can now provide for us a great deal more, so we should work less, create more, learn more. Oh my gosh, what we'll be able to do if we made advancement that was not based in capitalism. What would we be able to do? Amazing things. And I'm not a communist if it sounds that way even for a moment. I'm just saying we've gotten something wrong. We've gotten something so pulled in one direction that people get what they think they're supposed to, and it's always, they'll make it tougher to get, there'll be less of it. People become unhappier and unhappier and unhappier within corrupted power structures. We're in a cycle. Everything repeats in cycles. Your behavior repeats in cycles. The history of the world repeats in cycles. We repeat relationship cycles. The way out of that is to stop, simplify your life, and ask yourself, why do I want what I think I want? And when it comes to relationships, so often it's about conveying worth to you in the eyes of others. And that is one of the first things that you have to let go of, is deeply caring about what other people think of you. You have no control over what they say about you, what they think of you. If you let it matter to you, it will hold you back on every joyful level. Overcoming deceptive influence from all of the external power structures is the key to joy. Because it doesn't mean you become this, some of the lessons are good. You retain the good lessons. Like, hey, if I was kind to everybody, then I would be making a good difference in this world, which is something that's incredibly important to me. This world, your place in it, where you are right now in history, you hold a version of the world that nobody else does. You are the creator of your world. The way you view it, the way you process it, the way you interact with it is entirely up to you if you claim that power and reject deceptive influences. But it doesn't mean that every lesson that you learned from those power structures is wrong, because that would be too easy to reject, right? That would be way too easy. They have to seed some truth in there to get you to fall for the other stuff. And one of the things that they're asking you to fall for is you need all of this stuff that we endlessly manufacture. When I talked about AI, what should happen is that it provides more. Fewer and fewer people have to work as hard as they do. So costs should go down because there's less of a need, right? But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that people are losing their jobs. There's economic insecurity. There's this weird panic about people getting older and like, oh, what are we going to do? And the solution is staggeringly simple, but like no power structures are reaching for it because it's not profitable. And it's simple in that what you do is you create caretaking professions that are about caring for the elderly. You prioritize helping people at a later stage of life. You give it dignity. You pay it well. You have an incredibly good work-life balance so that it's incredible. That incentivizes people to do it. If you have a 3-day work week as a caretaker, how many people are going to sign up for that job? And if people don't feel stressed out and used in their jobs, they do a better job. All we have to do is prioritize it as being something we find meaningful and worthwhile as a society, caring for our elderly. And we don't need everybody to have kids to do that. Communities can do that. When I talked about people figuring out whether or not they really should be in monogamous relationships, understand maybe you really shouldn't. And that it perpetuates generational trauma based in betrayal of trust, based in like incredible heartache when people struggle with their inner worlds and who they are and trying to conform to a standard that had nothing to do with who they really are. Which is not to say everybody should be polyamorous either. Some people are really like, no, that's what I want, but they should all be getting together. And our current structure has it so that if you have the answer of like, hey, I want multiple partners, society going to shame you. Now, it does have its, background in like before the advent of modernized medicine, people could die from being having multiple sexual partners because sexually transmitted infections, there's no way to stop them. And they could cause congenital birth defects. Syphilitic families exist. They believe Jack the Ripper might have been somebody who suffered from syphilis as well. That there are good reasons from the past, but those don't really exist any longer. We have high-level treatments. We have a better understanding of what makes for emotional wellness. We live in an amazing time, and we're still trying to live by the rules set out before you could flick a switch and have the electric lights turn on. Your rules are coming from a time that has nothing to do with your life, because they're based in power structures that have been trying to hold on to power for, in some cases, thousands of years, and in some cases, hundreds of years. And that is why you need to question them. And it's not all go anarchy, have the purge afterwards if you discover, hey, my answers are different. It turns out I will find joy and fulfillment and a greater connection, a greater feeling of purpose, which means a greater desire to contribute. When you figure out the way that you fit in and what's best for you, quite frequently what you'll discover is, I have something I want to contribute. I want to help in whatever way I can, because we do have a natural desire to pull together. And one of the easiest things for me to point to, and it's not actually a monogamy thing, what I discovered was that I'm happiest single. And I did not know that when I was younger, because I had always had relationships. Attachment issues, profound trauma led to me not having the prettiest relationship history until about the last 7 years or so, where following a divorce after a long-term marriage, I was like, I'm not going to really do this, because I was attracted to somebody who was incredibly unhealthy, and even I logically knew that, but I felt this emotional compulsion towards it. And if you've learned anything about me through this podcast, it's like the word cycles is magic to me, because I was like, what cycle am I repeating here? What horrible merry-go-round do I need to get off of if I think that particular person who was an alcoholic, a chain smoker, had evidence of emotional abuse towards multiple people? Was one of those people who talked big game but never did what they said they were going to do. There was a bunch of, and like, I'm not trying to crap all over them. They still have value as a human being. It was very obvious at the time that it's like, okay, this person is not for me on every single level. Why do I emotionally feel that pull? It was because I was trying to fulfill an emotional need from childhood. And I was very attracted to people who kind of matched the template of all of my incredibly punishing caretakers. When I talk about being chiefly in the care of my alcoholic grandmother, and this is, I don't hold any ill will towards her. That poor lady had such a hard life. She had such a hard life. I'm going to briefly outline my grandmother's life. My grandmother was born into a family that had a lot of weird secrets in it. There were a lot of representation of things that were not quite true. There's a story about my great-grandmother that I've shared before. My grandmother grew up having that normalized where an obvious truth was being denied through this, whimsical story about how her hair fell out and then it came back early. In the South, like it's very highly suspect stuff. My grandmother grew up having that normalized. When she fell deeply in love with a student at an Ivy League university, and I don't even know how she met him, because she was at the University of Virginia. She had a college degree at a time that women didn't necessarily have that. She was a registered dietitian. She fell deeply in love with this person, and of course she was not considered particularly suitable because her family was bizarre, crazy, had all kinds of stuff going on, but decent enough human beings, oddly enough. So she got pregnant on purpose. There's almost no way she didn't do that. And then would tell this very elaborate story about how when my father was older when I was born, so he was born in 1929. And so a long, long time ago, and she had this very elaborate story about how he was born at 6 months and didn't have fingernails and all kinds of, and it doesn't even match with real preemies. It's like now, the part of what really made it very obvious is that she clung to that with a tremendous, because of shame. She wouldn't admit, yes, we were having sex before we got married, and a little bit on purpose because his family wouldn't accept me. And they acted like she wasn't accepted for the rest of their lives together. He died very, very suddenly following a routine surgery. She had been with him at the hospital, was the hospital where she worked. He comes out of recovery. She's talking to him, whole 9 yards. They tell her, go home, get some sleep. You've been here all night. She gets into her car, goes home, arrives home to a ringing phone. He died right after she left, just died. And for whatever reason, it was such a close confluence of events that they assumed she left because he died. And so the phone call that she got was not, oh my God, your husband has died. It's, what do you want us to do with his body? And she was already a functional alcoholic. He was her whole world. It was incredibly codependent. He had a lot of things that, likely he was autistic and had ADHD, as my dad did. He was not diagnosed with that. It's just that it's the time blindness thing that my father had that was finally like, okay, he had this. There's no way. Um, he comes from a long line of teachers, people with a very intense, I want all the information focus. Like, it's like ding, 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 ding. Look, neurodivergence in a genetic line that was highly intelligent, and so it wasn't ever caught as being out of the ordinary. They were just academic eccentrics. So she's thrown for this horrible loop. She has a son who has autism and ADHD, although it's really, really like there's no way of knowing that. He's just treated as being weird. Goes off to the Korean War. He gets really screwed up with CPTSD. And for the rest of his life, they had the grossest codependent relationship where my father was not functional, and it was not his fault. Really understanding that he was genuinely disabled helped me a great deal to forgive some of the incredibly violent things that he did to me. So I would grow up with her, and she was the primary caretaker, and she would obsessively chain smoke and watch bad TV and drink. And so I was literally all alone. And part of what led to my finally feeling well as a human being was giving myself permission to not be social. Because that was when I had peace, and when I read about a bunch of things, and I taught myself a great many things, and I was incredibly isolated. I was literally left entirely alone in a giant house, and I never saw her. Like, she would give me meals, and I would have clean clothes, and that was it. I was a profoundly neglected person as well. But I'm okay, and a lot of people have this backstory. The reason it's important to talk about is that if it happens to be your backstory too, know that you can heal. That there is enough information to help you heal. But first, I had to overcome the deceptive influence of believing that we had to be social. I am, in fact, asocial, which is completely different than being antisocial. I always knew that being social drained me incredibly, but that, like, you're taught that it's wrong. Loners are weird. Always kept to himself is part of the bad news story. I do best with that. I healed profoundly when I stopped paying attention to the things that were about, you're supposed to do it this way. Instead, I was like, well, how am I supposed to do it for myself? Now, of course, I had the added thing where my cards literally told me over and over again what to do, and it worked. And I would find out later that they were actually mimicking things that were known therapy techniques that I had not read about, I didn't know about. I would get the cards, and then I'd go study on what they were saying, and it was like, oh, wow, that's a known technique. What made that possible? I don't know. There's more to this world than we can see. Whatever answers you're drawn to help explain that, that's the right thing for you. To find your authentic self is to find that authentic connection to the answers that are right for you. To be able to be freed from it, another good example is, how do you feel about your body? Because how you feel about your body was taught to you. It is nothing about, like, another thing I discovered being happy, being single, is that, like, I have a really good relationship to my body because I'm in really good shape for somebody my age, because I, had an exercise addiction, quite frankly. Mild, everything is mild, moderate, severe. I had multiple mild forms. I overdo everything, even when it's good, and I overdid exercise, and I, helped me be strong at this stage in life, which is good. But that I had to discover that, like, these are the things that I need to be aware of. When you overcome deceptive influence and you start asking yourself who I really am, without worry about being wrong, without worry about, like, hey, what am I working on? What do I wish was better in me, so that I interacted in a way that I felt is fair to myself and to others. So part of the reason I stayed single was, after this terrible, destructive attraction to somebody, I was like, well, that can't be healthy, which means I need to heal. And as I healed more and more, I was like, wow, I'm healthier and happier. And I started to notice that my anxiety and depression lessened, got better, and was finally gone when I stopped forcing myself to try and fit a social template that didn't make sense for me, given my own origin story. So what you do in deceptive influence is you look at who you authentically are, what you were drawn to, what made you happy, what gave you peace. And then you compare it to what you were taught about what you're supposed to have. Your body, you have been taught to approach with shame, with judgment, with control rather than celebration. We have some problems in, at least in the USA, with people having weight problems. And it's not about shaming or body shaming. It's not. It's that it speaks to something in our food quality that is like, well, this is a new thing. And it's not just about people not moving. You see people moving all over the place. We have it tattooed into our brains, exercise. That there's something else going on. And so one of the things I did in my keep simplifying is that, like, I tried to get rid of all food additives because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I was like, well, why am I anxious all the time? I saw an ad campaign about Nutter Butter and some very bizarre things they were doing. I was like, oh, I like Nutter Butters when I was a kid. I'll get a package of Nutter Butters. I ate a Nutter Butter and was weird for like 12 hours afterwards. I was like, this is strange. I feel like on edge. I was anxious. I went and read the ingredient list and was like, well, no wonder, threw it away. And understood that anything with high additives in it was, I have a delicate, sensitive system. It's part of the reason I can do what I can do. I'm pretty sensitive. But all of those things were about leaning in on studying what was right for me in contrast to what I was being told. Because not everything in deceptive influence is deceptive. It's about controlling you through information. And the things that you have been taught about your body are about how do other people look at it? What does it look like in the clothes that you're supposed to buy? There's a health and wellness industry that makes oh so much money that wants to sell you, like, Ozempic is having a day, and like there's a skewing back towards people being incredibly thin. And by people, I mean women. Part of the reason that they want women to be so incredibly thin is that it robs you of all joy when all you care about in your life is defining yourself by the size of your dress or your pant size. That's a really easy way to make sure people never feel powerful, is if they feel bad about themselves. Being single, the thing that finally I stopped caring about what my body might look to another person, and realizing that, for an older person, I run up and down hills and mountains and jump around and lift weights, and I'm incredibly fortunate to have an incredibly healthy body at a stage in life where not everybody does. And that is part of my genetic line. The same genetic line that was like, oh, so screwed up, also gave me, came from my Scottish side, people who, like, you practically have to bludgeon them to death to get them to die. They're so hardy. I'm being pretty literal. Like, it's honest to goodness, there's a hardiness to that side of the family that is absolutely staggering. And that I started to really view my body as this tremendous gift, because I no longer cared about what it looked like, because I didn't need to care anymore. And like I'm between a size 4 and a size 6 all the time. I have been almost my entire life, because genetic predisposition. And that's supposed to be a virtuous thing, but, like, honest to goodness, I had an eating disorder. I've had a lot of disordered behaviors because I was incredibly damaged. Disorders can go into remission with, the targeted, focused treatment. Now, I did not have treatment from an external source. I teach myself best. That's another thing I learned about myself. Understanding that I'm a very solitary person gave me permission to be like, well, teach yourself things, but be careful about your sources. Make sure you get different things. And if something sounds utterly outlandish to you, leave it alone. It's not the answer for you. Everybody is drawn to the answers that are right to them. And one of the ways to overcome deceptive influence is to start understanding it's there. It's there. How you were taught to view other people, how you were taught to interact with this world. One of the things that brought up the monogamy issue for me was I was reading in, I stay in touch with what's going on with relationship dynamics sometimes by reading in the Reddit forums as well about the questions people are asking. And one of the things you'll see over and over and over again are cheaters never change, blah, blah. People change as much as they want to. Some people cheat because of attachment issues. It is not actually a mark of your integrity or character in and of itself. Getting married and then cheating is like, well, that's not the right thing to do, right? But it can be a sign of damage. But that people had these very entrenched bad shame. And here is why. Non-monogamous people are less likely to get married and produce taxes and buy houses and do all of the societally structured things. So they really don't want you believing that not staying paired up could be to the benefit of society. We have an increasingly technologically aided society, meaning we don't need that structure any longer, but we're clinging to it like it's a life raft, and it's not. It's like that stupid door in Titanic. Not everybody's going to fit on it. People are going to go down if we keep clinging to these outdated structures. And most people, when they're happy, want to contribute something. Um, the best thing about health and happiness and joy is you want to share it with people as much as you can. Deceptive influence exists in what you were taught to want, how you were taught to view other people, how you were taught to judge their choices. One of the easiest examples of deceptive influence, and I'm not crapping on faith. Faith and religion are not the same thing. Oh my gosh, if you ever take anything away from me, please take that. Please take that with you, is that we treat faith and religion as interchangeable concepts. They are not even close. Faith is personal, and it is a connection to a source that you will be guided to what the best name for it is, the best approach to it is. Religion is the stuff that was built by a society to control you with that. Religion incorporates some of the true teachings and then makes a bunch of rules that are about serving a society. And that's, and does that make religion wrong? Religion can do good things too. Releasing black and white thinking is one of the ways to overcome deceptive influence. And we're encouraged to think in black and white terms. Ask yourself, why do I really want the things I want? Because the thing that I discovered on my healing journey is that, and I am healed. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm a happy person. I have a great life. And I think that this is a wonderful and magical world. One of the ways that I turn my own mood in a good direction every single day is to remember that little kid part of me that spent so much time alone. She would be freaking out with joy over just how amazing the technology is, how much art you can create, how many stories you have access to, how much history, how I can sit in my bedroom and go to Istanbul on a really deep and personal level if I feel like it through a POV walk filmed on YouTube. How incredible are these gifts? And yet we've managed to turn it into something incredibly destructive because there is an overreaching power structure wishing to influence everything you want, desire, and think through whatever access it has to your power. So the unplugged thing is always, always going to be there. And I know I sound like a broken record, but spend time away from your devices every single day. If you are second screening things, stop doing that. And if it makes you uncomfortable, ding, 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 there's your deceptive influence. It's very simple. It's very simple. Put your frickin' phone in another room for 2 to 3 hours. If you are freaking out, you are under the influence of deceptive influence. Same thing with tarot. I stopped giving emergency readings because I realized people were using tarot as a way to treat their anxiety, and that is the easiest way to invite in deceptive influence. In deceptive influence, keep in mind that denial is a protective construct and it falls away as it needs to if you're in a healthy state. Reading for yourself, you don't need to know what's coming up. You need to know what to do in moment to moment. Now, guides can help you with that, getting readings about what's coming up, what challenges you might face. View your challenges as lessons. But the first thing that you need to do is understand that you're not being told you're foolish or a rube or naive or sheltered if you have been the victim of a deceptive influence, because we all are. Because the first thing that starts is, don't be you, want what we tell you to want. And then they send us to schools that were literally built like industrialized factories so that people could be trained to be factory workers and do things on the bell and ask for permission to go to the bathroom and all kinds of things, which is not to say that there's no value in education. There's so much value in education. It's recognizing that more than one thing can be true at once, and that in deceptive influence are always the seeds of things that make things work so that we fall for it more easily. So what you want to do is cherry pick. What do I really want? And remembering that the rules of every spiritual belief system that reaches towards the light are good ideas, which is be kind, be generous, do not judge other people, try to rid yourself of resentment in your heart, try to forgive because it will make you feel so much better. One of the best feelings in my life was the idea that and it was just kind of sudden. I realized it's oh wow, I'm not angry at my ex-husband any longer. He's really a screwed up person. I hope he gets help because there's more to him than his worst traits. And realizing that I really felt that. And I had been saying all along, if you can't forgive, you have something to heal. And so when I really felt that, I was oh, thank God, I'm finally healed. Healing will take longer than you want it to because our deceptive influence can also take the influence of, take the form of protective denial, which strips away as it's meant to. Don't rush a process. Learn patience. Patience is peace. I'm choosing peace. I'm choosing patience. This is an excellent mantra. If you are anxious, the thing that you ask yourself, and don't take action when you're anxious. Don't take action when you're angry. Don't take action when you're anxious. Don't take action when you're feeling jealous. Recognize these are all normal parts of a human being. One of the hardest things for me in doing readings was the idea that every single day I get kicked in the low-lying jealousy that I know better than to hold. When people have these tremendous families and all kinds of things that I just will never experience because it's too late in my life and it's not actually something that's good for me anyway. Realizing that like there's a part of me, and I was ashamed of it. It's because jealousy is bad. The church teaches you that's a sin. Just a normal part of a person that you go, yeah, but I know what jealousy is. It's cherry picking the part of somebody's life that you want and not taking the greater framework around it. I know for a fact, because I've been told it to my face, people can be jealous of my ability with cards. It's like, why does something speak to you so clearly through cards? It's like, but you have to take that with the greater framework that part of the reason that's possible is that incredible isolation that I'm talking about. And it really was profound. It was profound enough that like every therapist I talked to, I haven't talked to therapists in years, every therapist I talked to about it was a little bit horrified because it's like, oh, that's not good. I grew up in this bizarre empty house that was dirty and all kinds of things that were like, well, that's a terrible atmosphere to grow up in. Oh, and you were profoundly alone and neglected and delightful. I'm sure you're well. And I'm laughing genuinely instead of trauma laughing at that, because I'm healed. When you heal, you see your journey as informative rather than destructive, no matter what's been in it. It informs you making better choices to have more joy. And healing is part of overcoming deceptive influence. But first you have to recognize there's deceptive influence in my life. Where's it coming from? And sometimes it's coming from within you. Like when I talked about really wanting somebody that I logically knew, I'm a very logical person. I logically knew, like, that person's not healthy. This is repeating a cycle. This has to be some form of transference. And in fact, it was. It was codependent transference. It's actually very common. It's what rebound relationships are based in, is that you just transfer that energy onto the next, which repeats and perpetuates the cycle. Break a cycle. Break a routine. Have something completely different for breakfast. Have spaghetti for breakfast. Do something different that is outside of the, I do these conforming things because I've been told if I do these conforming things, I will get a good life. But almost nobody in this day and age feels like they're getting a good life out of doing these conforming things. Break through by asking yourself, sitting with yourself and not being threatened by it, not being defensive around it. Like me with the jealousy thing going, well, that's perfectly natural, but you don't actually really want a big family. I don't know how to maintain personal relationships because I was not surrounded by them. And I didn't see any healthy relationships growing up, none. No extended family meant that I didn't see healthy relationships. So I kind of lack that skill. It's part of the reason being asocial is the best thing for me. I always end up feeling inadequate when I try and act like other people because I had a different experience and it made me a different person. And not everybody will have something quite that pronounced, but there's something in you that you were told you were supposed to want it, and a part of you feels shame for not wanting it. And so you are in denial. And so that's really where finding your deceptive influence is, saying, I'm not threatened by the fact that I might be in denial about something. Denial is healthy until it's not. Denial is protective until it's ready to be stripped away. And it's a part of, and what happens when you strip away denial? You find your authentic self and you find your ability to be joyful in what you're doing. It's so important to do, but if you're easily threatened in thinking I'm doing it wrong or I'm being judged, you're never being judged. Nothing that is trying to help you on a journey is trying to get you to judge yourself, but it is saying, look for the deceptive influence in your life if you're still having trouble breaking through. If you're still having trouble with the breakthroughs on manifestation, on your own intuition, on being happy, being connected, feeling joyful, feeling like this world is worthwhile and there is so much reason to hope. Break free of cycles and of structures as much as you can because they're hopeless and they want us at like loggerheads. They want us constantly in conflict, because that uses up our energy and we can't insist on change to make things better for as many people as we humanly can. And whatever anybody else around you believes, understand that they were taught to believe that. And it takes incredible bravery and strength to look at the things that, well, I've taught to believe this, but this belief appears to be false, and it is not serving me, and it is not serving this world. And so I'm going to figure out what I'm supposed to believe and what I'm supposed to do. And I am as happy as I've ever been. I'm as healthy as I've ever been. But my life does not resemble the structure we were told to inhabit. And it is absolutely the right structure for me. And will it be always? No, I don't know that. That's the other thing is don't think that the way that you are right now is absolute and forever. You are meant to be changing. You are meant to be evolving. You are meant to be going into a bigger and bigger growth cycle, breaking cycle after cycle after cycle. Cycles are about inhibited growth. When you break a cycle, you are inviting in growth. And with growth comes the ability to flourish. With growth comes the ability to be abundant and to prosper. Look for your deceptive influence. It's there. It's there. And I've, talked about this type of stuff before, but I never really put it in these terms. Sometimes we need a phrase to understand, oh, wait, okay. Again, go back to your body. If you are somebody who's carrying some extra weight and you feel bad about yourself, ask yourself, do I feel good in this body? Do I wake up feeling happy? Am I able to move around? Am I able to sleep well? Am I able to do the things that I want to, whatever those might be? Because you don't need to have to exercise if it does not make you happy, although most people's brain chemistry responds to it, so think that one through too. Find where how you feel about your life, how you feel about your journey, and how you feel about what you are doing in this world was given to you rather than produced within you. Because produced within you is your connection to your divine source and to your highest self. And that is why you want to sit down with yourself and without judgment or fear of what you might have to change, or, learning so much about what trauma does to a person and what neurodivergence is and the different forms of it that I have, explained absolutely everything I'd ever struggled with. It turned out I'm an incredibly understandable result of a specific set of circumstances. And so part of the forgiveness thing is being able to forgive yourself for your struggles. That is why accepting the struggles in your life as lessons is so freeing. Instead of feeling afflicted by them, which, the victim stage in recovery is normal. Please quit shaming people for it. It means they're still in pain. Acknowledge the pain and then go towards the expansion of, but you will feel better if you begin to take a different perspective on it. There's a saying that, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. It's a little bit true and not. Pain is inevitable, suffering is a result, and we can make the choice to have that suffering move into acceptance, expansion, growth, prosperity, and abundance by going towards, without fear of what it means about how I will feel about myself. What am I trying to grow within myself? What am I trying to alter within myself? Without judging anything about me. Most of the things that you struggle with, you did not do to yourself. Stop blaming yourself. And if something is trying to control you with guilt or shame, it is a form of abuser. And it doesn't matter if it's a person, if it's a structure, if it's a religious institution or an educational one. Abuse of power is about controlling people, and deceptive influence is something that you encounter in every form of your life. Start questioning things and understand that your answers will come from different people in different forms, and you may take some of it and move on to the next. The easiest one for me is always to point to the jealousy thing, because I would not have thought that. When I started getting indications through my cards as usual, which is always look at this area, look at this area, look at this area. I was like, but I'm not jealous of other people. I don't want to be like other people. I like being me. But that I didn't, there's always a part of me, and it's most prevalent around holidays, of comparing myself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. And comparison is engendered in you by what? Deceptive influence. Ask yourself, where's deceptive influence playing a role in my life? Am I trying to get the things that I'm told are right for me? Or am I really examining what has given me joy? What lights me up? What makes me feel connected? What makes me feel powerful? What makes me feel magical? And don't care what other people think of it. If it's D&D, do you. Let's go. Do your thing. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, you're living in a magical energy. And you are going towards closer and closer to authenticity, which brings you into your greatest power. The more people who are authentic, the more that the corrupted power structures around us will begin to fall. If you want to know what you can do to make a difference in this world, dudes, quit buying things you don't need. Quit trying to buy your happiness. It is not, you might get a kayak and love kayaking, and that's a great form of like, this purchase brought me joy. But it needs to be internal. Your joy comes from an internal space. If it's an acquisition, that's deceptive influence, and it's the worst one at play in our world right now because it has everybody chasing something. And the answers lie in standing still and being still and asking yourself, where is deceptive influence playing a part in my life, and not being threatened by it? Because it might mean giving up things, but it's always giving up things that weren't serving you in the first place. Everything I ever tried to be in my life was about trying to conform to a standard that I'm not meant to fit in, because my neuroscience, literally, I have a different brain. I was doomed to failure in my life because I didn't understand something about myself. That is not my fault, and I'm not blaming the soul because it didn't even exist in terms of the data and the focus, and I'm just grateful that I got to be part of the generation that had the answers. I feel for my ancestors so much because they didn't get these answers. And then part of tapping into ancestral power is there's a part of you that is tied to something that predates these power structures. Part of you predates this. Tap into that. Tap into your ancestors as much as you can. Do ancestor offerings. You don't have to have altars. You literally can set up part of your dinner and say this is an ancestor offering. You can dance to your ancestors. You can simply talk to them. You can write them things. Why? Time is a fluid structure. It is not linear. This power is still available to you, and it is this close through a veil. As long as you will do something to try and part the veil, you can have access to that ability to survive and your confidence in your ability to survive, which is the thing that takes down deceptive influence. Your confidence in your ability to be able to get by with what you're able to produce, that is where your real happiness lies. And deceptive influences is telling you, you need this car, you need this house, you need to look like this, you need to weigh this much. If you do not love your body, you are suffering from deceptive influence. If you are ill, that is different. You're still trying to heal something, and going towards these things will help you anyway, because one of the easiest ways to start healing your body is to heal your mind. Because when your mind is healed, even if your body's suffering a little bit, because I get injured, I have multiple permanent injuries. And so sometimes I'm not very comfortable. But I have this very rich inner world that, like, it doesn't matter so much. I can just let that feeling pass. And that's what happens when you've overcome deceptive influence, is that your emotions don't control you any longer, because you know your emotions, your negative emotions, almost always come from a deceptive influence from an external source. Find deceptive influence by asking yourself, what role is deceptive influence playing in my life? This has been Logical Magic, examining esoterica. Deceptive influence and overcoming it for your authentic power is basically what we've been talking about. Hey, if you need me, you can find me at therisingmoon.com exclusively to book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session, to talk about whatever might be going on with you, your personal power development. You can find me at Tarot at the Rising Moon. I don't know what's going on with that. I thought I was going to start posting again, but like that kind of, my energy level didn't support it. So I'm just waiting to see what I'm supposed to do next. Maybe I'll be going back to that. I don't know. I have a Patreon. I do weekly readings on energy and monthly readings on energy. And, you know, we talk about different concepts there as well. So I hope you're able to join me. Logical Magic is out every first Thursday of the month. I switched doing it once monthly and not having so many interviews because I really talk about deceptive influence. If people already signed off, that's fine, but we have one last thing on deceptive influence. Part of what made me stop interviewing people, and I may go back to it at some point, was how many offers, how many pitches I was getting constantly. I was being bombarded, and they were using AI, and I could tell. Because all of the pitches said, I really enjoyed this particular episode, and then it would, you know, single out one phrase, how you compare this to that, and it's like, someone's analyzing transcripts, dudes. This is not natural. Not everybody puts it this way. And because it was obvious. And sometimes I would get so many that I just felt like it was an onslaught. And so I took a step back from that to like quit conveying to these algorithms that you could hit me up by not doing as many interviews. And in fact, I stopped getting as many pitches. When I go back to it, I'm assuming the same AI will hit me up with that. But if you are somebody who's doing pitches, know that your AI stuff stands out. It stands out. Authenticity is what you want to function with in spirituality. And that was part of the reason that I was like, okay, I am inviting a lot of deceptive influence into my life in a way that I don't like. And it wouldn't bother me as much any longer, but it was getting me down when I was still depressed, so I kind of got rid of it. I don't know when I'll go back to doing interviews or if I will. I don't really. I've released the need to know what the future brings because I have very good record with timing, and I'm very tapping in will give you that. Is that really the thing that I should say here? Is that overcoming deceptive influence puts you on the timeline to be in perfect divine timing? Because the divine overcomes deceptive influence, and the divine exists outside of deceptive influence. This has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Thank you for joining me.